Greetings all, BWS2K here. Quick video on how I do solo Cortex, or kind of like what goes on in my mind. Just a couple of points, 5 or 6 points that I feel like are worth mentioning. I usually always have these in mind, and if you find yourself in a place where you want to do this, it may be worth considering for you as well. And I thought it would be timely, especially considering that this is, well, it's something which I've been doing for years, but moving into the Cortex Lite game, I mentioned that in my last video, it sometimes helps to revisit the past and kind of like, tighten that up and get on the same page and then move forward in that way. So that's the purpose of the video, nothing fancy. Point number one, use Cortex's strength as a storytelling engine. Not everybody does it this way. Not everybody Cortex is this way, but I find that it works best when it's collaborative storytelling, or even if it's just me as a storytelling engine. I usually envision writing a series of vignettes, comic panels, or film sequences, sometimes with soundtracks. I remember the scene with Cold Heart and Speed Freak, and I had Etta James at last kind of in my mind as I was playing it, and I really, really, really like that. I love when things just kind of come together and it's like, ooh, that sounds like that'd be really cool to play through. And then I wrote every scene has a purpose, and I use montages or brief descriptions to fill the sort of quotes, non-purpose space. So every scene has a purpose that in some way contributes to the overall narrative. Sometimes those scenes are boring, and by boring I mean there doesn't appear to be much going on there. But every moment that makes it into a film, or every word, every line that makes it into a book, is ultimately contributing to the overall narrative, even if it's just giving space. I remember having a conversation with my father. We were watching Clash of the Titans, the old Clash of the Titans, and there are just scenes where it's just sweeping vistas, and there's mountains, and the main character is sort of traveling from one place to another. And you see this in Lord of the Rings, the more recent Lord of the Rings movies too, where it's just shots of them traveling, and so it's, what is the purpose of those shots? What is the purpose of that quote unquote scene? Well, it's not really contributing in a larger sense to the narrative, but it is giving us sort of the impression of passage of time. Things are percolating, things are coming to a head, and it's also giving us a moment to process. This is a moment when we can look down from the screen, and have a bite of our meal, or we can sort of take a breath and go, this, get caught up in the moment. So it's not necessarily that there's, sorry, I have a really squeaky chair. I traded living in a place with lots of traffic to living in a place with a squeaky chair. It's those moments where you kind of can rest and let the story just kind of do its thing. So every scene, every line, every beat has a purpose, even if it's not anything grandiose, which is usually why those things don't last very long, right? You don't have a 30-minute scene of traveling from one place to the other, but it's maybe 10 seconds, or in terms of Cortex, it might just be a quick montage or a quick scene description, or rather like a transition scene description, where you're just explaining, back at the house, they're able to get their gear together, and the evening passes pretty uneventfully. The next morning, everybody heads out to the van and they get ready to go. I don't know who I was describing there. The Mystery Machine, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, that was point number one. Use Cortex's strengths as a storytelling engine. I feel like that's when it works really well. Number two, know your main character or characters. Most of the time, a character's distinctions, that's a distinctively Cortex thing, right? The characters' distinctions, because they're going to give me a hunch as to what those characters want to do next. It can take a while to get into character, and the first scenes with new characters especially might be a little awkward, but I'm still building a character history to refer to later, and getting that momentum is hard when you first start. But the more you put into understanding the character, and I don't mean length, I don't mean I have 7 pages of write-up about this character. I mean, getting to know that character, writing some solid distinctions, or even just 1 or 2 distinctions that will really help you understand who is this character, where do they want to go, what do they want to ultimately pursue, how might they react in a situation. All of this, the more time you spend in doing that, and I would not say analysis paralysis. I would not say spend days and days and days if you are wanting to hurry up and get to the story. But taking the time to understand your characters, and maybe I'll add parenthetically, learning who your characters are through those first few scenes helps you to better inform those other scenes. When I was doing the Marrow series, where I had her in the Days of Future Past setting, a lot of what I was doing, I didn't use oracles. I didn't need to use Mythic Game Master Emulator. I do use it to like set up scenes, but I wasn't really asking yes or no questions for the oracle, because once I get started, it's like, okay, well, Marrow would respond this way in this particular situation, but I know that character really well, and so that's what guides me more than anything. It's not the dice, it's the character. All right, number 3, drama trumps rules. I've played hundreds of hours of Cortex and Marvel Heroic at least, and I still completely space out on the rules sometimes. Usually it's because I'm so caught up in the story that's unfolding, which is ultimately sort of the goal, right? To have a cool experience and get wrapped up in it, right? Retcons can happen. It's don't block that off from being able to go back and change things if you need to. But I am never afraid to just go, oops, that was me, I made a mistake, and then just forge ahead and not worry about it too much. It's more important to me when I'm gaming to try to be telling a cool story than try to be following. All right, number 4, quick and easy. Failure is drama. Give me hitches and I'll give you an awesome story. We don't want, well, typically when we are reading a story or watching a story unfold, drama is the tension, it's the conflict, it's the confrontations, it's the obstacles, it's the struggle. Those are the things that make the stories that stick with us most, usually. I won't judge anybody else's taste. But for me, I don't look at the totals and go, oh, I failed at, oh, nuts. Well, I guess I don't want to tell a story where the main character is always winning. In fact, if I do anything, if I'm guilty of anything, it's quite the opposite. Gosh dang, I put so much stress on my main characters sometimes. But that's drama. I love it. It fuels. I was afraid. Okay, I was afraid. Years ago when I started doing solo stuff, which was like, what are we in 2025 now? So this would be, 15 years ago. Yeah, I think 14 or 15 years ago is when I first started getting into TTRPGs and then consequently role-playing on my own. I was into play-by-post and stuff like that first. So like the idea of making that perfect character, everybody falls for that. Everybody wants to do that, right? But ultimately, I have found that makes just a flat story. And I want tension. I want unexpected things. And the unexpected things, by the way, that's when usually most solo engines will like, prompt you like, oh, what'd you do? Roll doubles? Oh, what'd you do? A horrible failure? What if? And then, you roll on a table or you follow a piece of advice or whatever. And that's when you can actually use the tech. Which brings us to number 5, rely on tables, but rely most on flow, the flow of the story. I love random tables and generators as much as the next Cortexer, maybe more. I don't know. I won't make that claim. But the fun for me of solo gaming is trying to find or to thread the needle of a narrative through seemingly disconnected bits of information. And I don't know if that's true of everyone. I genuinely don't. But for me, it's really awesome to roll up stuff and be like, okay, Mythic Game Master Emulator is a great example where you roll up stuff and it's like, okay, I want this scene to be about, well I'll use Marrow as an example. I want this scene to be about Marrow, and she's coming in and she's finding the gang, the raiders, rogues. She's finding the rogues and she's like about to exact her revenge, and there's going to be bloodshed. And then I roll and Mythic is like, what if you had an interrupt scene, something completely random that somehow ties back to this event? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what completely random event that has nothing to do with going on right now still somehow ties into it? And then I roll and it's like, treasured finding from childhood. And I'm like, what does a treasured finding from childhood as a random interrupt event make? Like, how is that the next scene of my story? And I love that challenge. I love trying to answer that question. How does that fit? And sometimes it's like, well, the Hulk wouldn't do that, or Ben Grimm wouldn't do that. And I remember this really great clip on YouTube that I watched, I don't know, in the last few years, but it may be older than that. Stan Lee was answering the question of, everybody wants to know who wins in a fight between Iron Man and Daredevil, or Spider-Man and the Hulk. And I always say the same thing. It's the one that the writers want to win. And it's like, wow, okay, the legend Stan Lee is giving a really solid piece of advice, which is, this isn't, ultimately, if you're telling a story, it's not about the numbers, it's about your intention. If there's a really horrible fight, a fight that goes horribly for your character, in addition to the failures drama point above, right? Sometimes you just want a character to win because the story is about them. And so that's how you make that choice. And so it's less of the tables and more of how can the tables support that thing. All right, last one. It's cliche for a reason. Number 6. It's cliche for a reason. Have fun. Have fun. I make videos. I make videos of my solo gaming, and I post them online for all the world to see if they want to. And even then, even being accountable to viewers, even knowing that what I'm saying is recorded for all time on the internet, as long as the internet exists, even then, sometimes I say, yeah, I'm bored with the series. I'm going to start over, do a new one, or I step away for a week or two, or a month or two, and I go, oh, look at this new shiny thing over here. Here's a new character. Here's a new story idea. Here's a new table or emulator or something, and I just start over. And I don't worry about that too much. I've learned, and I'm still learning, the importance of knowing when to walk away from a game with that experience, because you're always getting some experience from this, right? Which I had, the experience that I had, walking away with that rather than trying to force myself into enjoyment. One of the biggest pieces of advice for YouTubers that I have found to be true, and also more and more true the longer I do this, because I'm not anybody fancy. I just put my videos up because I genuinely enjoy it. If somebody said, BW, what are you doing? What are these weird videos? Like, what are you doing recording these stories of comic book characters? What is that all about? And I'm just like, hey, bro, that's me. This is what I like doing. I like when folks comment and feedback, and we have those conversations, but mostly I just like the idea that there's a phenomenon called, I think I've got it right, playing alone together, playing alone with a group. And it's kind of this phenomena in, for instance, MMO or RPGs or MMOs in general, where you are playing in an instance with hundreds of people, but you aren't talking to them. Like, you've got the group chat or the world chat turned off, and you're just doing your solo stuff just on your own, but people are there. So it's this idea that this game is like, this MMORPG is specifically designed to be played with other people, and you are not playing with other people, but you're still enjoying it. And that's a totally valid way of doing things. So for me, I like posting the videos of it. You might like doing a Google Doc and chronicling that way, or you might get a journal and handwrite your stuff out. And you might include the mechanics in line, and you might not. So, you've got to find what works for you, what makes it fun, because that's when it's going to be sustainable. If it's not sustainable, if you're not doing something that you enjoy, forcing it is not going to be anymore. That doesn't mean that sometimes you won't have moments where you're like, okay, I really want to stick to this. I really have to figure this out. And that's maybe when you walk away for a day or two or a week or two, and you just mull it over, and then you come back. And then, of course, if it's not there, it's not there, and you leave it and you do something else. You start a new one, and you know that you can always go back to that other one. But that's just, as you do it, the more you solo game, the more you will learn your solo game style. And so the more you will learn the tools that you like to use and rely on. And you'll know, because after a session, after a scene, after a page, you'll go, hey, that was cool. All right, awesome. You've learned. Or you might go, gosh, that was hard. Okay, maybe do something a little different next time, right? It's a learning process. Having fun is the most important. That last tagline there, if you're new to solo gaming, you may not yet know what gets you excited about solo gaming. It might be that you had a group of friends. See, I didn't have a group of friends in high school that played role-playing. I got into this completely on my own, and found play-by-post forums to play in. I've only played live games, meaning in-person games in the same room, gosh, 3 times, maybe, ever, 4 times. A lot of times I'm playing with folks in different time zones and all over the place. So, and that's online, and sometimes it's text only, and sometimes it's video, and sometimes it's on a forum, right? You will find out what it is that you like about it and how you can optimize your experience. I don't want to say optimize your fun. That makes it sound like a setup for failure, but you know what I mean. You'll find that flow, you'll find that flavor, you'll find that groove, and then, of course, that last sentence. What works for me or someone else may not work for you. Doesn't mean you don't try it. You want to make videos? Make videos. Make videos, post them on Reddit. Jump into the Cortex server and put it. There is I think a room or a channel for sharing your creations, and put it up. Say, hey folks, I did this thing. Check it out. Tell me what you think. And then, I'm technically I make videos, but like this video, sometimes my videos are just text, and that's cool too. You got to find that balance, and what works for you. So, all right. That was just a quick video, 15 minutes. I'm just laying down some basics. How do I approach solo role playing with Cortex? But really it's in general, because the idea, most of what's behind the solo role playing is this idea that you are going to move forward creating these characters, the story of these characters on your own. So there's kind of already built in this idea of story and the continuous narrative, which is really where Cortex, that's where Cortex really gets its strength from, in my opinion. And so embrace that, embrace the distinctions, embrace making mistakes and forgetting rules, embrace the failures as just drama, and really play that up. And the more you do that, the more you'll learn about your characters, and the more that will inform what happens next, and the more you will learn about yourself as an author, creator, and then you'll be able to have more fun. Have more fun. That's what it's about, right? All right. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I don't know when I will have the Cortex Lite videos up and running. Probably not till later this summer. Right now, as I write this, it's the end of May. So probably a few months, I think, if all goes according to plan. Plan is, of course, a 4-letter word. There is something else that I might do. I might have an interrupt. I might have a scene interrupt where I cover something entirely different, because in my recent travels, I found something different that I've really been enjoying, and I may share some of that first before we launch into the Cortex Lite game. But either way, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you. Leave a comment, questions, observations, any of that stuff down in the description, and or not description, but in the comment section. And yeah, Excelsior.